Cool. What's that?
There's no more to come.
There probably is, but I'll just sit here and wait to let anyone in online. Yeah. Yeah. Jump into it. No, not yet. I've just texted them.
All right. Hey everyone. I'm Zane and my mental skills coach. I guess that's important because today I'm going to talk about social media, and there's so many things I could talk about, or people could talk about social media. But I wanted to make clear that my focus is going to be the effect of it on your performance, really, and how it affects your mind and how that will translate to things that impact your performance. See how you're feeling, thinking after using social media as an example can impact your performance. So I guess it's not going to be about all about social media algorithms and how they work and brainwash us and all that sort of stuff. It's not going to be really getting detailed about the impacts of social media on mental health, more just in the context of sport and those athletes wanting to do well at the sport. So that's what I think. So I'm going to get you guys to actually have a chat to start with. Just on these questions. Just I'll have a chat with Harry. This is alone there on that side. And looking at, can you do these things without looking at your phone? Chat about it. Each one of those. Those are the ones I came up with. We could have plenty more. Obviously, you can if you really want to, but do you, I guess? So,
Can you guys see that? I'm going to email everyone the slides afterwards as well.
And what about like looking at video? These so it's funny, like just thinking about our behaviour and how it's changed now that we've got phones in our pocket, and obviously social media is a big part of those. Often like even using your cameras because you may potentially want to be sharing that, or messaging is effectively kind of social media as well, using those tools to message people. And then like even me, like last night, I like saw that sunset walking up the mountains, I gotta get a photo. And it's real interesting how our behaviour is so influenced now on. Hey, come in, see how influenced we are on this desire to need to share, and also like take an image and go, I'm experiencing this now, I'm looking at this now, but I think it would be even better if I could enjoy it in the future or show it to other people and get approval or likes or whatever it is from them in the future, taking you away from that moment of looking at a sunset, of you seeing orcas swim by, whatever it is, like all those sorts of things. And I also need to say I'm saying I'm probably the worst. I can't sit like sitting in the traffic in the car driving, and I'm a bit bored, you know, like, and start scrolling. What am I doing here? So really like aiming to get you to think about your behaviours today and your actions, to just see like what you want to be doing, and also asking the question what you might be missing out on. So some of those might seem pretty harmful, but what could you potentially be missing out on, like when you maybe try and escape the situation and go straight to the phone to get out of it? What do you reckon? Yeah, awesome. So you could be in a QA and be like, oh, there's someone I know over there, like, hey, you know, chat, that sort of thing. Yep. That's a great one. Yes.
I one over here ending summer traffic.
Definitely when you're driving.
I've rolled in.
You might miss out.
At a roundabout.
I nearly missed it. You might miss out on driving safe. Not crashing. You miss out.
Yeah. Human connection, proper connection.
Mm.
Like being able to really appreciate if you're looking at a view or something, you know, the sort of the less time you have to look at it, sometimes the more you can appreciate it being in that moment.
Nice. Yeah. And so because the moment we go, I need this moment or an image of this moment to enhance some aspect of my life in the future, it takes us out of there, right? So we actually not there looking at sunset, we go, what will this look like in the future on my feed or maybe not. So we're looking at our mind and how we're constantly bombarding it with information, and I'm going to talk about the few things that does to us. But a good experiment or thing to practice is actually just try doing nothing and see how that process is for you. So we're just going to sit for a minute, which is such a short amount of time, isn't it? And all you're going to do is just sit there doing nothing. Nothing deliberate. Okay, ready? Then we talk about what it's like. Stop watch. Okay, go. Minute. How long is that? Does that feel long to you?
Yep.
Short. Just notice, like, how was that experience just sitting doing nothing? Anyone want to share? You liked it? Yeah. Tell me what you did.
I think how I was breathing. To
Oh, cool. So you sort of did some meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, what do I have to
Mm.
What's on my next thing like to do?
There you go. Yeah. So your mind goes, like, interesting how we do that. It's like, oh, I've got some time now. I'm going to start going to plan and think about the future. Get out of here. Or you could stay there if you wanted to and stay and focus on the breathing, but there was no instruction. You know, that's experience.
I figured out that the floor is really uncomfortable.
Yeah. So there's more awareness of what you're doing, where you're sitting, all that sort of thing. So a bit of fidgeting.
Relived an old memory.
Cool. Did you just think, oh, I'm going to go and think about that, or did it pop into your head?
Bit of both. I had one pop in my head. I'm like, no, I can't remember another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone else.
Yep. Anyone feel bored? Yeah. And no one mentioned it, but I asked the question, like, what are we missing out on when we use our phone in situations that are quite boring? And that is kind of something. We miss out on the experience of boredom, which kind of, in the world today, social media plays a massive role in. We've almost like eradicated it. If you don't want to be bored, you can just take out the phone out. But there's some harmful effects of that as well. The boredom has a key role in how your brain works. Well, I found this interesting talking about the moment and taking images. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but I think this is the moment that he became the highest ever, LeBron James, highest ever scorer in the NBA. And I'm not really interested in him, awesome achievement, but look at the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see how we have changed as a species. Yeah.
The old guy at the front's not good.
Yeah.
And then the security guard.
He doesn't even seem that impressed. That even what for some people could be a momentous moment in history, it's not good enough till we take a photo so that it can be experienced later. So we've got this constant future orientation of like, I need this for something else in the future rather than I can experience this moment now for what it is and be present here. And that parallels with your performance is we don't need to be thinking about all the future things like what if I win, what if I lose, what if I fail, what if I whatever. We need to be really present and perform in that moment. And it's going to be harder when our brains are getting trained to do things like take photos because they might feel like it helps their status online when they can share that they were there. LeBron James got the record or whatever. But the footage is online. Anyway, like it's there instantly. They don't need to be. So it's fascinating, isn't it? That we feel like we all need to be a cameraman, presumably, so that they can share that on social media and then get those rewards that we want, the likes, status. So here's some facts. We'll talk about the good stuff with social media psychologically. But I just thought this is really important for you to consider because my message today is really what works for you and what do you want to spend your time on in your life? Because that's your biggest decision. The average is only 2.5 hours. I reckon most people, especially adolescents, so age 14 to 25, would be more than that, far more. But let's just go with the average, 2.5 hours a day on social media. So if some people get on earlier, but let's say 14, which is a limit, 13, 14 is a limit on most of the social networks. Until you're 80, people think, oh, you won't be using it when you're old, but Facebook is massively popular with like 6 to 80-year-olds now. That's 24,174 days of your life, like full days. And 60,000 hours for 7 years of your life. So nearly 10% of, sorry, over 10% of that time, 66 years. Yeah. Which is 2.5 hours a day, 24 hours in a day, 10% of the day, the 10% of your life, really, on social media. It's like a lot. We look at the pizza and go, well, one whole slice of my time here on Earth is going to be spent staring at that screen. 33% of the time I'm hopefully sleeping if I'm getting 8 hours. And then I've got like around just over half of it to do other stuff. That's not to say like that's all bad. There might be benefits to that, but it's giving you these things are hopefully just giving you questions to think about and ask yourselves, what do I want to be spending my time on? So that's really the only question that's really important. We often get asked, what do you want to achieve? But I think it's far more helpful to go, what do you want to spend your time doing, working towards growing, learning, and who do you want to be interacting with, all those sorts of things. Really important questions. I found this fact really interesting as well, so let's put up. Because I get this. Who has a phantom vibrating phone that doesn't actually vibrate? Who's felt that before? Like, especially if you keep it in your front pocket.
Sometimes hear the ding when it's not
You hear
actually
that as well?
dinging. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so basically we're so desperate to like check in on our notifications and think our mind almost creates it happening and gets us to then go on and check. Fascinating, but really common as well. So, we're going to talk a lot about attention, what it does to our attention. And mainly with attention, it's like the effect on your attention span. If I look really quick. In terms of like just your ability to focus on one thing, or like in sport, you want to be focusing on the right things at the right time every time. That's your goal. Doesn't always happen, but that's what you want. I'll talk about some of the effects that social media could be having. Not saying definitely be having on that. And then your cognitive load, cognitive is like your thinking, and how much you're processing when you go through an Instagram feed or whatever it is, Twitter, Facebook, any number of them. You're getting information all the time, and that can be really taxing on your brain without you even knowing it and tiring you out. So attention, really easy way to describe it is like a torch. You shine it at something, that's like the equivalent of your mind being focused on that one thing. You go to another thing, it can actually be widened. You can have a broad attention, and you can have quite a narrow attention. If like Harry's out there looking at the field before he's yeah. So he's like getting ready to bat in cricket. He's like looking at the field. He's got quite a broad attention, and then when the ball's coming, it's just looking at the ball. It's quite a narrow attention. So all sports we kind of go back and forth, but it's really selective. We choose what we focus on, and that's why it's really hard to not focus on something, because we can't really choose, like we can choose to not, we have to choose what to focus on. Makes sense. Even if we start to say things like don't think about, let's use cricket again, that field with it's right next to me, then obviously you're putting energy and focus into that in many ways because you're trying to do. So it's not like we turn it off, we just switch it to other things. Good to think about with your sport. But with that, we use that example in psychology because it's really good at highlighting that we don't actually multitask. So your mind doesn't do 3 things at once, 4 things at once, or whatever. It's focused. The torch is on one thing, then it goes to the next, then it goes to that. And sometimes it's like this all over the place, but it's never like doing all those things at once. Make sense? We'll try that out to see if, just so you can see that your mind can't do 2 things at once. We play paper, scissors, rock, you know, with whilst counting with your partner back in 3s from 100. Like 100, 97, 94. You can't hesitate on either, and you've just got to keep the game going non-stop whilst counting back in 3s from 100. Ready? Yeah. So you're going to do both things. One person starts at 100. Thanks. Go back, yeah, but you go, yeah, you go back and forth. So they say a number, you say a number. Yeah, I didn't explain that properly. Keep the game going, keep the counting going. Close on. Okay. So pretty interesting things like that. Pretty tough. Or did anyone find it easy? Should I ask?
I think if you've got a maths brain, you can do it.
Yeah.
What about if you're like a musician and it's like a rhythm thing? Like, you know, they're good at
doing too.
Yeah.
They're not good at stuff like that.
So good question in terms of when you learn a skill and it becomes automatic and you know it really well. So like like playing an instrument, you can actually do another task in your head because it's not, you don't have your like the same attention on it. It's like what we call it like a procedural memory, which is like it's a different part of the brain almost. So it's kind of an automatic place. It's like you can walk and talk at the same time. You're not thinking about where you put your feet all the time. And walking you've done for so long. So that's, you don't have conscious attention on it, but you have unconscious like automatic behaviors. So yeah, like and then rhythm, I guess, of the beat and stuff can come into it. That's why if I said I count to 10 and do it, you'd be able to, because you've done that so many times since primary school, that it's automatic. Like you could probably do the alphabet, but things that you have to think about, we're not. So that we wouldn't call that multitasking if you're doing something like driving and listening to a podcast, even though people are like, yeah, multitasking. It's like you're doing one thing automatically, unconsciously, much, and then the other and you're still probably tuning out in and out as well as you drive. So if we can't multitask, then when we're constantly getting all this information and new stuff, we're changing our brain. Sounds real fancy, but all you need to do to change your brain is do the same things over and over again. Basically, your brain sends messages through these neural pathways, and the first time it might be a little bit difficult, and it just gets easier and easier and easier, and then you have habits. So if you have a habit of continuous partial attention, which social media really encourages, so multitasking, and you're just going from this to this to this to this to this to this. I'm going to open that, open Instagram, I'm going to message here, and go to that. And you're just going all the time, bang, 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 which is often like when we're using our phones because they can do so many things. You need to think about how that's actually creating a habit of more fragmented thinking and less deep thought or deep focus, which I'm sure is important for a lot of your sports. So it can affect your productivity because you're not going to be doing the same one thing. You're doing 100 things at once and you're not focusing on them all at once because we can't do that, because our brains can't do that. You're going from one to one, and it's, as you can imagine, not helpful. So in sport, when we need to focus, which I'm sure most of you do, on your one thing, we want to be trying to train our brain to get better at that. And social media is kind of training it to do the opposite, right? And then there's the information apocalypse, in terms of there's just going to be so much information. There already is so much information coming at you from all places. If you imagine like going to school one day and having every subject presented to you in the space of like 5 minutes by every teacher, all talking at once. It's kind of like what's happening, and then you've got to try and like process all that. That's how quick information is just going into your brain when you're using social media apps in certain ways, because you're just like processing that, looking at that image, listening to that, watching that video, whatever it is. It's just constant load on your brain, on your cognitive capacity. So what you've got in terms of your thinking and processing, it will wear you down and tire you out. So a good thing to remember, if you've got a long day in the field for the cricketers, they need to be focused for a lot of that time. Then it's not going to be helpful to spend a good hour like before the game engaged in that stuff, which is just adding more time, more strain on your processing abilities. Yeah. So although like it's quite chilled out, sitting on the couch, scrolling through, just gotta be careful because you're still putting information in, you're not really resting. And if you actually just sit with your mind and let it wander, you get far more out of it in terms of your brain health. Any questions? No?
So I'd like to increase attention span, because I've had some coaches saying that, and athletes saying that they need their attention span to be increased when they're like playing those games.
Yeah.
Is there like techniques?
Yeah. So you need to be it's like what I think I've got slides. We are what we repeatedly do. So the last one. So you're looking to put yourself in situations where you have to focus on one thing and avoid distractions and keep going back to that thing, because the training with that is often like, oh, I can hear a beep or a ding or a vibration and I'm going to go to that. And focus is really like, oh, I heard that. Zane. Just like that acknowledgement, or like going back to your breathing is a great way to train that. So like meditation, that's why it can be really helpful for people, because they get good at like watching their mind get distracted and then bringing it back. So like I was saying with social media, it's not like you like minimizing how you use it and like maybe just doing less time or more focusing on one thing, or being able to like close everything else and just do one thing deliberately, one app deliberately, rather than have multiple things going on back and forth, closing that, checking emails, whatever, will be helping you with that, building your attention span. Make sense? So when we perform and get into the right performance state, one of the things I talk about is making sure our attention is focused on the task, what we're going to do, rather than what we are thinking and feeling and what's going on with us, how we appear and what we're doing. What we're how we're doing, I mean to say. Just here. So we want a mind focused on what we're doing, not on how we're doing. What we're getting our brains ready for is, are we going into an environment which is full of judgments, full of criticisms, full of evaluations, full of egos, full of all this judgment on self? And then when we go into perform, we really need to be not thinking about ourselves, not thinking about how we look and how we are doing. We just need to be doing it. So really important to consider like how often you get into that place of judgment, which is like social media is like, it's what it's great for, eh? Like even just judging other people, even if you're only a passive user and you don't put much out there, you're still thinking a lot about judging, evaluating, thinking like in all sorts of emotions that can come up from that. So yeah, I found this one interesting too. 30-40% of the time we speak like about ourselves in real life, but 80% of the time on social media about us. So again, self-focused attention or task focus. It's really hard if you're like a lot of your life is just going into the self-focused stuff. And then the moment you step out to perform, your mind's already thinking about like, how am I doing? What am I looking like? What do people think of me? Rather than what am I doing? Like, where's the ball thing? I hit it. This false example, but what I mean. Just trying to make sure I cover. What other sports have we got? Swimming,
Surfing,
surfing,
maybe.
yeah,
Got hockey,
hockey. You guys, yeah,
kickboxing.
kickboxing.
We've got lawn bowls, synchro on here.
It's also very understandable. We want to belong in the world. We want to feel like we're valued. People like us, all that sort of thing. So we go on to these networks, obviously, because that can help us feel like we fit in and feel important. And I guess the downside is we go comparison shopping. Okay, I look at other people and then compare them to me. I'm going to look at the best parts of other people's lives because that's all they're going to share. They're going to manufacture that. Make it look like their life's amazing so that they get more likes, and you're going to go on and then compare yourself to the best parts of their life, and maybe even only share the best parts of yours. And we just have this place where we're all comparing ourselves against very unrealistic standards. In reality, we're all struggling with stuff. We've all got stuff going on. We've all got uncomfortable emotions that we experience, and life's pretty hard. So going on there and just looking for comparisons to see how you fit in the world is not going to be a great thing to do, especially if you're feeling really vulnerable about where you're at in terms of your self-esteem or just your mood or things like that. So knowing, like, again, I'm not like, my intention is not scaring people off these things. It's just knowing about like why you're going on there. Is this a good time for me? Do I need this right now? Am I going to leave feeling better? So we know that there's studies showing that the more judgmental you are of others, then the more judgmental you are of yourself. So if you're a person that's constantly thinking, having opinions about what others are doing, then not all the time, but it's quite likely that you might have opinions about yourself in private as well. So you might be fueling that just by going on and like being quite judgy, which is what our mind does. It's a natural thing, but like just being careful, like getting into that can actually just be reinforcing those judgments that we have on ourselves. And they know that being less judgmental and more compassionate towards others, accepting people for who they are, can then actually transfer to you being more accepting of who you are and less judgmental of yourself. Although we always talk about the self, it's actually like, it can be really helpful to be kind of think about others people to make us feel better. So the message here is like, not everyone's minds are the same. If you've got one, mine's a bit like that. If I'm prone to that sort of thinking, like just constantly giving reasons or evaluating or telling myself I'm not good enough or whatever, then I know that I need to stay off it, especially a lot of the time, because it doesn't actually help me with letting go of that.
When you're in an individual sport and you're doing like a lot of self-analysis though, how do you stop that like inner critic from doing that? Say like, yeah, you're in a surfing heat and you're like comparing yourself to that person that like knocked you up, and like in your head you're like, well, I know I was a better surfer than them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like the self-talk, like how can you switch it off?
Well, we can't really switch it off. We can, like I said, with attention, we can focus our attention on something else, but also just acknowledging that when you're having those thoughts, you can let them go, but not be invested in eliminating them. So that's really important. So you can't like, yeah, well, like I was thinking as well when you were saying that about like, it's important that we're reflective and thinking about ourselves in regard to our performance, like evaluating, that's fine, judging yourself if it's in the service of helping you be better. But if it's not helpful to help you be better, and there's always going to be a limit to that where it needs to stop, then yeah, so you need to be aware of, I'm not saying we're not like critical of ourselves to get better, you need that. So it's acknowledging it, but when it's becoming too much, we need to be able to let go of that. It's not easy. And sometimes it's just going, oh, there's my judgmental brain. There he is, like doing its thing, telling me this, telling me that. Thanks for turning up today. I was talking to yourself like that sometimes and going, but you're not like in control. You're not going to make me do something like, which I'll explain, just go searching for comparisons to make myself feel better, or go searching for likes, or like just like try and do something to make me feel better to get away from this. So trap. That makes sense. You guys know if that sort of makes it's just like forcing. A little bit on FOMO, like FOMO is a massive thing, fear of missing out. But if you're someone who's got a big fear about being judged negatively, fear of people's opinions, really should be like unfavorable opinions that you might be afraid of. And then you're going on and like getting exposed to those, like really ask yourself the question, like, do I need this right now? Okay, because your mind might be going, we can be a little bit mean to ourselves, and we just keep looking at this stuff. But like keep reflecting, go, do I need this? Is this helpful for me to live a life that I want to live, to do the things I want to do? And yeah, I'm not going to be the expert on like how to manage this stuff in terms of the technology, but like if you're getting hateful messages, things like that, just finding ways to just avoid that and go and not go there. Blocking people instantly so that you don't have to see that stuff. Acknowledging they're there. Some people, there's haters out there, there's trolls, there's whatever. Okay, as soon as you can, blocking, ignoring, not getting in fights. You don't need to come back. You don't need to fuel them. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Thanks for showing up. And trying to ruin my day. You're not going to have that influence and moving on. It's not easy. You might feel something. You might feel hurt. That's okay. So you're not going on to social media for support, to reassure yourself, for your self-esteem, those sorts of things. Try and avoid doing that. It doesn't generally make you feel a whole lot better unless you're really connecting with, which is the upside. Sometimes you can actually really connect with people in a meaningful way. Not as meaningful as if you're with them, but there can still be some. So just got to know the game you're playing. If your online persona is more important than your real life, then the stuff you see online is going to hurt you a lot. Your online persona is more important than your real life. You're very vulnerable because people are not as kind as they are in real life online. So obviously, hoping real life is more important than our online persona. Hopefully, yeah, know the game you're playing if you've got followings and things like that, which can be a really cool, great part of being an athlete.
But say if you had a loss and you've got like your own athlete page,
Yeah,
would you be better to like mentally wait like 24 hours before you put up a post?
yeah. Like if we've had a bad result. Or something,
Yeah, because like obviously you've got sponsors and stuff that want to see it. So
Yeah.
like, do you just like hold off on doing
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah, or you can find like tools that will like external pages that will post for you don't require you to even open the app. So like social media managing software, usually used by businesses, but like I think with individuals, and you can just send it out. So the thing goes out, you didn't even have to open the app, because if you saw the messages, then you probably would get caught up into that or sort of thing. So like little things like that, definitely staying away. Asking that question, do I need that? Like potentially there's going to be some nasty comments. Do I need that? Can I compartmentalize it? Just say like after a certain amount of time, then I'm ready to sort of see that stuff. But yeah, 24 hours. Or just. But I know these are like this is the world, like, so we can't be ignoring it's going to be a part of our life. We have to just find ways to reflect and ask ourselves.
Might need to speak up.
Cool. So big fan of boredom. We're going to embrace it a bit more. What does it do? It's really healthy for your brain. Your brain has something called a default mode network. Basically, when it's doing nothing, so you're not like looking at anything, it will just like wander and do its thing. They used to think like the brain just was like shut off when we weren't doing anything, but it goes into this default mode. Really awesome, because on the back of that, we often get really creative thinking, and it's actually really healthy for our brain to be in that state. So embracing boredom, something that we need to bring back. And on the other side of that, some really cool stuff. And we can often have really deep introspection or thinking about ourselves, be more reflective and have more creative thought, which is important just in, I'd say, in any sport, just in terms of how you're approaching things. So I go up to the supermarket and there's a big long queue, and then obviously like, oh god, this and then we go like this, boom, get me out of here, like take me to this place. Normal, everyone does it now, but you could be looking at them as opportunities to just go, I'm going to experience this emotion of boredom, this feeling, and then be willing to have it. And that can be some mental training for me, because my mind's going to be saying, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here. And I'm going to be saying, I'm okay here, I can experience boredom, I'm not going to die, whatever it is. And then, hey, when you're under pressure, you're gonna have the same thing in sport. Your mind's gonna be saying, get me out of here, get me out of here. I don't feel comfortable, I'm feeling nerves, my heart is racing, but I've practiced. There's the emotion, I don't need to escape. I'm gonna go towards this feeling. I'm willing to have it. So really transferring these little things as opportunities to practice your mental training in terms of being willing to experience emotion that's actually quite helpful.
I'm doing that with my lunch now. I'm not allowed to touch my phone while I eat my lunch.
Yeah.
It's quite hard.
Yeah. It's quite scary. Like, I don't know if you can go to like cafes and order something and sit down and wait for it by yourself without checking your phone. It's like, it is quite hard. And that's opportunity, I think, to practice. Because what we want is to have the willingness to experience discomfort in the service of what's important to us. So yeah, like these can be mental challenges like doing the dishes, eating your food, the stuff that you would normally like distract yourself from. Just try and actually do those and be present with those can be really cool mental training. That's not just like sitting in the corner of the room and meditating. You're kind of doing the same thing, but everyday tasks. The reason it's there is because social media is the number one thing that's taking people away from those moments. And it's so accessible. So what happens when it takes you away? Anyone heard of dopamine? It gets a lot of attention these days. Yep. Anyone know what it is? Let's talk about dopamine.
So
Thing that makes
chemical reaction in your brain.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the positive
Yeah. Associated.
peak of it, yeah.
Yeah. Associated with reward. It does other stuff as well. It's like neurotransmitters, like a fancy word. It's like a hormone or chemical that like helps signals of your brain pass through. And it's like present and associated with rewards. So what happens? Oh, really interesting fact. When rewards are given random, it triggers far more dopamine, it's more addictive, and people get hooked and want more of it. So gambling, really addictive. Not knowing what's going to be on your Instagram feed, really addictive. Even when you slide, it spins like a slot machine, they say. Designed to be as dopaminergic as possible. So making it like completely random, but knowing there's some good stuff there somewhere, the more you search often.
I was saying like, is it sometimes like associated towards like, around like the chase, like that thrill of like, oh my gosh, I
Yes.
can't wait. Then once you win, you're like, oh, that's not enough.
Yeah. So dopamine's actually
It's not like what it's like that.
the anticipation of it. Yep. So I like a big piece of chocolate cake for me. I'm like, this is gonna be so good. And you're eating it, it's like, but when you actually eat it,
It's
you're like, oh yeah, all the thing that feels good is the anticipation of the next bite. That's the dopamine coming in. It's so funny because then you're eating it and you're like, oh, like, again, not saying you can't have it. Enjoy cake, but similar with food. Yeah. So if you've got an online persona that creates attention, likes, sponsorship, endorsements, and it's a kind of a trap that you really got to be able to manage because it becomes part of your life. It's just we're all basic. We're all animals. It's really simple. Now we have technology that's programmed really, really well to give you these rewards as quickly as possible. And the more you get used to it, the more rewards you want. So the more use the more you go on your phone to get these quick rewards, then the more you're going to need. It's like a drug addict. They need more drugs, the more they're into it. So that's why people's use increases. They end up staying up all night because they just want more and more. So really natural systems. It's our reward system in our brain comes up and we're getting those likes and things like that and we're feeding that. So why we want to feel good in this moment is often because we're avoiding coping, or we're using avoidance of a feeling to cope better with the situation. Again, so often it's boredom, but other times it might be other things. Could be in a stressful situation. Oh, just get me out of here. Like take me away. Or you just could be feeling really upset and you're like, oh, maybe there's messages. Like you're trying to escape a feeling, a natural human emotion, and you're saying to yourself, I can't have that. I only want the good stuff in life, not that. You pull out the phone, go on social media, and you try and get that dopamine reward. And it's instant feel good, but long term you're saying, can't tolerate emotion, can't have that in my life, or human emotion. I just have to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah, not to mention it's obviously programmed to disrupt stuff that you want, based on all the previous stuff that you've done on your phones, not just on the app itself, but all the contract you see outside, depending on your phone now. All your use is tracked, so it's just going to be so programmed to give you stuff to hook you on there to help you avoid your life a lot of the time, avoid those feelings. So I call them the emotional avoidance device. So avoidance coping is really harmful because it's who gets like quite nervous time to time in life. I do. So if let's take that, we call it anxiety. It can range from just like being slightly nervous to being really debilitating, like stop you even leaving the house. But the anxiety that can come up, you go, I want to avoid this. So you might avoid leaving the house and going to have that hard conversation with that person that you needed to have. And then as a result, you've said the message to your brain, like, hey, when you're feeling that, just like back off, don't do that stuff. So you're sort of teaching it that lesson that when anxiety comes up, back off, don't do it, run away, that fight or flight response. There will be times when things are too much and you have to back away, but when you do that, you're actually reinforcing and making the anxiety worse because you're saying you've got the power, whatever that feeling is, that's got the power over me, and that's going to boss me around in terms of what I do. I need to feel good instantly, so I'll do those things that I need to, rather than I need to feel good for the long term and do what's important to me, how I want to spend my time. So when you're examining and thinking about your social media use, you can think about like what drives your decision. Is it what you value, what's really important to you, how you want to be as a person, how you want to spend your time on this planet? Or is it driven from a place of eliminating the fear of other people's opinions, the fear of missing out, the boredom, the loneliness, insecurity, sadness, anxiousness, whatever it is, stress? If you're going on there to go, get me away from this, you're saying that stuff, man, it's too big. I can't have it in my life. As a result, it's growing. And also you might be missing out on some stuff that could be really important for you. If you're a surfer, yeah, say you're in the final and start feeling a lot of nerves, start feeling the pressure, stress. And if your goal was to eliminate that, I just need to get rid of those feelings, you just wouldn't compete, you miss out. And you're probably pretty upset if it's something important to you in your life. So if that's the goal, just feel good, just eliminate feelings, then it's a real problem because we miss out on what we're all about, like doing the hard stuff that's important to us. Any questions? So negative, I feel like. About the whole. But in summary, yeah, we're probably, not all of us, probably gonna be more distracted. Or tired from all the info. More self-focused, judgmental about ourselves, all that sort of thing. And more avoidant if we're starting to use social media more and more and more. Things go on. Have a read that. I think it's really cool and one of the books I've been.
Might have to read it out. Sorry.
We are supposed to be slim, prosperous, happy, extroverted, and popular. This is our culture's image of the perfect self. We see this person all over social media. We're told that to be this person, we just have to follow our dreams, that our potential is limitless, and that we are the source of our own success. But this model of the perfect self can be extremely dangerous. People are suffering under the torture of this impossible fantasy. There's just so many shoulds, eh? Like, we should be this, we should be that, we should look like this, we should be successful, we should.
Cool if you don't have this.
Yeah, unless I've got this, not cool, unless I show this, like, unless I look like this in a bikini, whatever it is. It's just all these shoulds that we put on ourselves, and it's just being amplified. And it's just impossible, like, no one reaches that goal.
The editing tools and the filters now are so realistic that you
Yeah.
don't even tell if it's reality.
So scary what they do, like even TikTok's got a 5% beauty filter built in. Like, just make you look a bit better without you knowing, like they haven't asked for permission. But if you've got artificial intelligence, like you can enhance stuff, and yeah, you're not gonna know. You never know what's real. Even though you look at people and go, man, they must have got it nailed. They haven't. There's struggles, they've got feelings, they've got emotions, they've got some things going on. That we all do, and that's okay. We don't need to keep striving for that. World that we see. It's exhausting. I've got these questions, three I thought I was going to get you guys to chat about, but we're running a bit short of time. But there's similar ones here. All they are is for you to.
I'll send you guys out an email with the sheet.
Is to reflect on how it's going for you. So that you can then start to make just some habits for your use. That suit how you want to be and like work for you.
When you journal, how much do you need to write?
As much as or as little as you want, stuff that just comes to your mind, you might just write it down. But if you've got a deliberate, for me, I'm thinking having a deliberate reflective practice just for looking at that. So every day you might just go 5 minutes. I'm just going to write down like my experiences of social media, how it made me feel that day. Like, I looked at this comment that got me caught up in that. Like, I had an experience. I guess it's not quite classified as social media, but it could easily happen on there. I checked my email at like 10 o'clock. And it was a big email that made me like feel really anxious and stressed, and took me like 2 hours to get to sleep because I was thinking about it. Like, did I need that? Or could I have just addressed it in the morning? It's like thinking and reflecting on that, just going, okay, well, maybe I just need to not check that before bed, and I can have far more likely to have better sleep and not be worrying.
Do you think it's like better to like go through your social media and like actually think about who you follow? Because I feel like I follow so many people and I don't even like their pictures.
Yeah.
Like it's just to look.
Yeah.
And then like, because yesterday I was watching them on YouTube and I was like, man, like you irritate me so much. Why do we follow you? And then I unfollowed him and I was like,
Yes.
yeah, because I guess I wasn't getting any value.
Yeah.
From them, but I was still like following them for I guess sort of thing. Like, oh, everyone else follows them, I'll follow them.
Yeah.
And just like realizing that like what value they bring to you. I swear I follow so many people, like, I don't even like your pictures. Like, I'm literally just
Yeah.
like, who are you?
Yeah, so really like
Good to know how you
curating
feel
like
about my content.
No, no. Not like, I mean, you're important.
readers like, I've been unfollowed.
But I mean, once you like unfollow someone, you feel so I literally feel like.
Yeah. Isn't it odd how it's so easy to block or unfollow or whatever, but we just don't do it that often? We kind of just go, what now? And sometimes there's a kind of like part of us that wants to see stuff that we actually don't need. So like really thinking like, what do you value? Like, do I need that? This guy is just always, you know, like criticizing stuff, and it's really addictive to read. But do I need that? Like in my life, is it helping me? Just asking that question. So yeah, reflecting, like you're saying, like, is this valuable to me? Is it helpful? And I think doing that for 30 days of, you know, an amount of time, but I think just if you, it needs to be for a certain amount of time, so you just like see your day-to-day moods and how you're responding to certain things, how you might like, you know, how you might find that you just can't sit without your phone, and maybe there's some things that you could change there to just have those habits move a little bit so that they can help you perform and just re-engage. Remember, like the 10% of your life, we don't want it to creep up to 20% of our life. But for many it already is.
I also think as athletes, it's really good to align who you're following with what your like goals are. Because if you do go through your list of who you're following and they're not going in the same direction as where you want to head, like have a serious think of why you're following them.
Yeah. So that time, I think, again, I would love to say that.
I wouldn't go through right now, just to like unfollow, block.
But yeah, like Isaac said, do that with the same thing with people in real life. If they're not actually aligning with you, then why are you hanging out with them?
Well, like, I swear I follow this lady and I know she like photoshops her photos because I've seen her in real life. Like, I know her and she photoshops her photos, don't like her photos, don't do anything, but I still follow her. I'm like, why? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's all because it's so like that. When I showed that reward system, it's so impulse driven, and just having some ability to just take a step back and have that self awareness, just going, okay, like, is that helpful for me? Do I need that? And then making those decisions that sometimes it might be a little bit hard because like, oh, maybe they've got something to offer me. Well, it's probably err on the side of being ruthless when you're blocking in it, rather than like worrying about missing out on stuff. Because remember, information's just all coming at you. So the more streamlined you can make it and like focused on your values, the better. Yeah, and this is the same message I've already mentioned. Last one. But as a tool, also reflect on what are the benefits for you. There's huge things you can do with who you are as a person and how you present yourself. I acknowledge that. I've got a business as well. I use social media, and you know, it's a helpful tool. And I'm not the person to say, okay, we should just eliminate it and you guys should. I definitely can't make that judgment about you. So you need to think about yourself and the role it has, benefits it has in your life, how important that might be and how you can manage that. Yes.
Do you think like for athletes and
Yeah.
having like an athlete profile online, it's better to like treat it as a business?
I'd say so. Yeah.
Like, I know some other athletes who they try like schedule their posts and like plan ahead, so it's like literally just like work like I only post at this time on this day and this done.
Yeah.
And then maybe they'll like respond to the comments for the first like hours, like you know, and like it's kind of like not pointless, but it kind of like like yeah, just
Well, it's that thing about the focusing your attention, because then you know you've dedicated that to your day, and then you're doing your scheduled posts and your comments, and then you're going to block it for the rest of the day and not pay any attention.
It's not like helpful. It's kind of just like pointless wandering on social media.
Like, so if it's going to be better if it's deliberate. So like, this is for the hour that I'm going to do. I'm going to go through and maybe reply to those comments. Like that's the sad thing about the algorithms, is that like the stuff that can really like be harmful is kind of like the stuff that also helps drive engagement on your pages if you're trying to promote yourself. Like if you comment more, like if you like get involved in conversations on comment
Yeah, it's like
lists,
engagement, yeah.
it's going to boost stuff up. So it's like, you know, you got, I guess it's like knowing where to draw the line and knowing like, I can't do that, even though I know it probably could help me improve my profile, might get more sponsorships and all that. Yeah, it's a tough world.
I know the synchro girls have to get in the
Yeah.
water, so thank you for coming, girls.
That's just right. Awesome. Is there any other, you got any questions? Yeah, explore ways around. I'm not the expert on it. I have a software called Smiley Q. I can just post and